Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Listen to, I don't even know how to start this video because when I say that I'm going to tear this book a new one, the book in question, I've said I was going to post a reading vlog. I've said all of these things, but we're here now. And I actually did record like a reading vlog, but I thought it would be better to just sit down and get all of my thoughts out in one go. So I woke up a couple nights ago and I grabbed my notebook by my bed and I started jotting down my thoughts. So when you see me referring to this is what this is. Just my thoughts about this book and in the way that I didn't like it, essentially. So for those of you that don't know, Magnolia Parks Into the Dark is book 5 in the Magnolia Parks universe. I don't have the second or the first Daisy Hates book, but it's book 5 in the Magnolia Parks universe. And this series, well, the Magnolia Parks books are more Gossip Girl-esque, and they focus on Magnolia and BJ and this toxic back and forth, will they, won't they, do they love each other relationship. And then the Daisy Hates books are about Daisy, who is a nursing student or a medical student, her boyfriend Christian, which is in his own gang, and then her brother Julian, who is a art thief but also like a gang lord. A lot of lore there. Actually, too many characters to a certain extent, but we'll talk about that later. Focusing more on BJ and Magnolia because those are the main characters in this book, which is the one we're really gonna tear apart today. The whole sort of premise of their story is like how many loves do you get in a lifetime? And I've said from the beginning that these men in Magnolia's lives, they fall in love with her so fast. It's like, what does she have? What does she have other? Like, I'm sure she's cute. We're not that aside. What is this girl doing to these men that has them following her like puppies? She's walking so many men in the UK and in the States like dogs. It's actually insane. So let's refer to my notes before we get going. I listened to the audio book with this book. So I was doing like a combo eyeball and audio read. And I think that helped the experience, but not by much. Because when I tried to listen to the other books, the accent was just throwing me off. I couldn't do it. But for this one in particular, it was so long and it dragged so much. This was 708 pages, absolute brick of a book. And I think without the audio, it would have been horrific for me. So there's that. Now let's actually get into what happened in the story. Now at this point, if you do plan on reading this and you don't want any spoilers, I would pause the video and come back after you finish. If you don't care about that, keep on going. I'll also say that before reading this, I really had to adjust my expectations because I knew going in who Magnolia was gonna end up with. Like, I don't think anybody that was reading this series, even though we may have wanted it to be otherwise, I don't think anybody that was reading this was like, she's gonna end up with Julian, right? So, and we're gonna talk about Jessa, Julian, and her attitude a little bit later. But I wasn't reading this thinking that like she's gonna pick Julian. I knew that it was gonna be BJ. So I had to sort of allow myself to say, okay, can BJ have a redemption era? From the beginning, there's a time jump from the end of Long Way Home and The Great Undoing, because those books, like Daisy's and Magnolia's books, are concurrent. They're going at the same time. So there's this time jump after we know that Bridget has passed away, and sort of seeing Magnolia's grief process throughout or after Bridget's death. So immediately it felt kind of weird to just skip over some things, and BJ and Magnolia are happy, they're planning a wedding, and it's like, let's take a step back. The time jump felt crazy, and I feel like there were so many plot points and things that were important in the other books kind of just really didn't matter in this one. So to me, the biggest one that I didn't even really care about in the other books was the love triangle between Jonah, Tora, and Henry. And when we get to this book, like very early on, we find out that like it's no longer a thing. The three of those characters, so Tora being Magnolia's best friend, Henry's BJ's brother, and Jonah is Christian's brother. Their love triangle was one of their only personality traits, one of their only characteristics. And in the beginning, I mean, like within the first 20 or so pages, we find out that that's not a thing anymore. So just when I start to be like, oh, who's she gonna pick? It doesn't matter. They all what happened? But apparently she did pick Henry, but something happened with Jonah's mom, which I don't even remember if that was discussed in a book because I don't remember. But something happened with Jonah's mom, and so Tora didn't really want to pick between one or the other. So now the whole love triangle has been blown to smithereens, okay? So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of how the love triangle was handled, being that was such a big part of the story. Like any time that Jonah, Henry, and Tora came up, it was always about the love triangle. So, or Tora sleeping with BJ, which like, why are we still talking about that? Anyway, I thought that was weird. I thought that wasn't handled well, and it just didn't flow right. Okay, on to the next page because there are multiple. Same old thing with BJ and Magnolia. So if you've read the other books in the series, you know that BJ did cheat on Magnolia, and throughout this book, that constant yapping in Magnolia's ear, is BJ cheating or is BJ not cheating, was going on the whole time. And there was a time in the beginning where I was like, is he cheating? Because I wouldn't put it past him. So you have this thought, not only with Magnolia, but as the reader, that BJ could be falling back into his old ways and cheating. Another thing that was very prominent in this book in particular was Magnolia's relationships with her parents and BJ's relationships with his parents as well. So we got to like see BJ kind of explain to his dad that how he felt like insufficient sometimes as a son, as a man, and have his dad tell him that like he made mistakes as well. So okay, that can go over into the pro category of the story. But as far as Magnolia, her relationship with her mom and dad was still just, it was so turbulent throughout the entirety of the book. So again, relatively early in the story, we find out that her mom and her dad are having an affair. So if you didn't read the books, if you don't know what happened, Magnolia's mom, Ari, and her dad, Harley, I don't know, I'm just gonna pick one and go with it. Harvey were married, obviously. And then Harvey started having an affair with the nanny, Marcelly. And so at some point, Ari, the mom, and Harvey, the dad, got a divorce. And Harvey goes off and marries Marcelly, okay? So now in this book, the parents are having an affair with each other, and Harvey's basically giving up on Marcelly. All the relationships in this book felt so just stupid and pointless, okay? So that's going on. And BJ knows about the affair. So that's also one of the things that Magnolia is like, is BJ cheating on me? Like, he has a secret that I don't know. And that's one of the secrets. There are more things, but that is one. So even though there are things that like I don't like about this book, obviously, there are some things that are okay. And I think I think when I was reading this book, it was obvious that the two of them do love each other. And I talked about how there's this theme of how many loves do you get in a lifetime, but I feel like with BJ and Magnolia in particular, you have to ask yourself, is that love enough? Because I think that if Bridget didn't die, that they wouldn't be clinging to each other the way that they really did in this book. Only because I think that for so much of the story that that Magnolia was clinging to any little aspect of Bridget that she could still get. And we know that Julian was the other like serious love interest. And Julian just didn't know Bridget as well as BJ did. So I think that in some way, Magnolia was still trying to find all these little pieces of Bridget that she could get. And BJ was the best out of the two to give that to her. Now, speaking of Bridget and the way that the grief was portrayed in this story, I think that as much as it could be, I think that the grief was done well. There were moments where, well, not even moments, honestly, throughout the whole story, you would see Magnolia going into the bathroom to like have conversations with this hypothetical, this mental image of Bridget. And that was one of the ways that she processed, and like she didn't turn Bridget's phone off. She was texting Bridget throughout the story. And just the way that Bridget's death kind of impacted the way that Magnolia lived her life. So because Bridget went home and died from an aneurysm and they didn't really know what happened, Magnolia kind of got really obsessive about BJ's health, and she would check his pulse in the middle of the night, and that's how she would go to sleep. And she didn't think that BJ was picking up on any of this, but he actually was. And another reason, like I've been talking about how this whole is BJ cheating thing is flashing throughout the entire story, but Magnolia was also trying to control what BJ ate, and basically saying that he needs to eat these green pea mush smoothies in order to stay healthy. And sure, that was her way of trying to protect him, but because BJ is who BJ is, he wasn't down, he wasn't rocking with the smoothies. So he was sneaking out to go eat hamburgers and stuff. And it kind of came to a head for them, I think, when she found him eating a burger. And he basically said that, you know, we need to go to therapy. I can't live like this, which, like, honestly, real. Because in my opinion, if you are Magnolia, and as oblivious as she tried to be about Julian's life and Julian's career, you know everything that Baxter James has done. So you know that man, like, he cheated on you. Y'all had a toxic relationship. I just feel like it doesn't matter how much they love each other. Now, he could do it again, and that potential would always be in her head. So if she's going to make the decision, which she did, to be with BJ, then you either need to let that go or you need to work through it. Because at a certain point, I was annoyed with BJ. I was like, girl, you can't keep bringing that up if you're going to choose to be with him. So BJ was like, let's wrap it up. Let's go to therapy. Let's talk through these issues, because you constantly thinking that I'm having an affair isn't working. So now we're at the point of the book where my husband Julian comes back. Okay, throughout the whole beginning, right, we didn't know where Daisy was, we didn't know where Julian was, and we knew that Romeo was with Julian as well. We've seen Christian a little, but not much, so we don't know what's happening. But Julian comes back, and again, I had to adjust my expectations. And if I didn't see a spoiler from like the conversation that they had, I think it would have made me cry. However, I kind of knew what I was about to read. But Julian comes back, and Magnolia's kind of like, you know, you never called, you never sent condolences, you've been gone for 4 months, what happened? And if you read the end of The Great Undoing, you know that Julian Hayes had to be sedated in order to be taken away from Magnolia Parks. BJ could never. BJ could never. So anyway, they talk and have a conversation, and he pretty much just needs to have closure in the conversation and ask if she was ever actually in love with him, because for Julian, Magnolia is the only person that he's ever loved and that he probably will ever love. And Magnolia tells him, in I guess the nicest way she could, that any universe where Baxter James is alive, it'll always be him. It would never be Julian. And so Julian takes her home, and he kisses her, and he looks her in the face and says, let me be done with this, okay? Let me move on. And you would think that Magnolia is not that thick in the head by what she does later, but we'll get there later. But Julian says, let me be done. Let's have closure. Delete my number. Like, I need to move on from this. So they're still going to therapy, and a big part of the therapy was talking about Billy, the child that they miscarried when they were 15, 16, or both 16, whatever. And the therapist was suggesting to them that, you can probably share with your family now, because the anniversary of Billy's death was coming up, and they always went up to her memorial to celebrate it. And she tells, or they both respectively tell their families, I can't remember if it was together or separate, but they tell their families. BJ's parents take it well. I think Magnolia's parents took it well in the moment until they got there. And the memorial service, like, when I say spiraled out of control, I truly mean spiraled out of control. I don't even know what was going on. Okay, so now we're about at the 50% mark. Well, no, actually, we're at the 60% mark. And I knew by this point that this book was getting no more than 3.5 stars. Like, it was impossible at this point, because it just wasn't good. So they're on their way to celebrate the memorial of Billy, and I can't even remember exactly how it got brought up, but somehow they start talking about the fact that Harvey's never been a good dad to Magnolia, to Bridget, and that Ari has also just never been a good mother. And when even thinking about it now, I was like, what is unfolding right now? So I think this is where BJ started beating down Harvey, or his name could be Harley, but we're gonna go with Harvey. Started beating down Harvey, and then Harvey basically told Magnolia that he wishes that she was the one that died, and he never wanted her, and he threatened to come back and bulldoze the tree that Billy's memorial was at. Like, so much was happening, and I was like, this is a lot. So you've always known that, like, Magnolia and her dad had this turbulent relationship, but now it's like so much of it is on page. And I've talked about the repetitive nature of this book, but this just felt like it was annoying, because we already know they don't have a good relationship, and everything that they were saying kind of could have been inferred. Like, I didn't need it on paper to say, oh, that makes sense. That's why he feels that way about Magnolia. So they stopped talking for a while, because she was obviously like, why would your dad threaten to come and bulldoze the tree that memorializes his granddaughter? But hey, that's above me. So on to the next point. Let's see what that is. Okay, so again, with this whole repetitive thing, we got a little bit more of BJ and Magnolia as kids going to boarding school for the first time. But again, I personally feel like if we're already 3 books into a series, well, 3 books with the 2 of them as main characters, I don't even want it anymore. I don't care what they were doing when they were 6. Get like, no, like let's keep it pushing. Who cares? Also, and this could have happened honestly before or after. My like my storyline might be a little bit off, but honestly it wouldn't even matter. So at Ari's birthday, she tells, or basically announces to the world, that her and Harvey are getting remarried. So after, or renewing their vow. So yes, I guess remarried. So after their original marriage, an affair, a divorce, an affair, they're now getting married again. So they're getting married, and then Ari is telling Magnolia that she essentially had Magnolia to trap Harvey, and that's why Harvey feels the way that he does about Magnolia, because she wasn't planned. She wasn't wanted, and Bridget was the one that was wanted. And again, did I need to read that on paper to kind of understand that that's what happened? No. And if I didn't guess that, I could have inferred on my own. I just could have guessed it. The book was so long for no reason, because we kept talking about things that don't even matter. I think what carried through their first two books, at least, was the fact that there's this tension, this will they, won't they. Now you add in Julian and Magnolia being with Julian, and that's shaking BJ up in his boots. Like, you add in all of these things, and that, I think that's what kept the first couple of books going. Now you get here, and it's like nothing is progressing the story. So let's talk a little bit though about the wedding that these two are supposed to be having, because we know that at the end of Long Way Home, they were engaged. So we know that they're getting married. Like, you know, it's BJ and Magnolia for life. So underlying the story is Magnolia picking out a wedding dress, which, and this is just a little thing that I guess is part of Magnolia's quirk, but I could care less about what everybody's wearing and how descriptive she gets about everybody's outfit, but that's whatever. So she's picking out multiple dresses because they are these hot shots in London. Their wedding is to be publicized. Everybody knew about it. So that was kind of going throughout the whole story. However, we just said forget all of that and moved on and had a private ceremony. So it's like all of these things that were pushing the story didn't even really matter. The plot, dare I say, the plot was nowhere to be found. Okay? So you would think that the two of them are getting a happy ending, right? You would think that this is supposed to be their happy story, but nothing was happy. And I think that's another thing that really just kind of upset me, that it's like, what are we doing? Not only could this book have been 400 pages shorter, it could have been a novella. It could have been a bonus chapter. We didn't need it, okay? So now here's something that really kind of grinded my gears in this book. There are a couple things, but this one really stood out. So I told y'all how Julian looked at Magnolia in a, oh, wait. Let's go back a little bit, okay? And again, it doesn't even matter that I'm talking about these things out of order, because the book didn't even make any sense. So there was a point where they're having dinner, all of like the friend group, and Christian is there with the new girlfriend. So you know that Christian is Daisy's boyfriend, and Daisy is Julian's like on again. Oh no. Wait, let's restart. Christian is Daisy's on again, off again boyfriend. Daisy is Julian's little sister. Okay, so we know that. So we're at this dinner, and Christian is there with the new girlfriend. Okay, and it's like, what are they on about now? So you know that Jessica kind of has to save room to expand again on the next Daisy Hates book, because like I was saying, these books are overlapping, so they're occurring at the same time. So it's clear in Into the Dark where there were moments that Jessa would obviously go back and relive through Daisy and Christian's perspective, and even Julian's. But I'm like, oh brother, again, like what can we keep getting into that requires this much, that requires more story, more of this, more of that? So Magnolia, being the little weasel that she is, can't leave anything alone. So she goes to Julian's house, and after Julian said, let me move on from you, like leave me alone, block my number, she shows up at his house, and that poor sweet soul still has a little bit of hope, right? She comes there and he's thinking, is she here for me? Like, what is this? She's not. What does she say? What's going on with Christian and Daisy? How about you mind your business, Magnolia? How about that? No? Okay. So Julian, once he realizes that Magnolia is not in danger, that she's not there for him because he is a good man, he tells her to get out, okay? And obviously we'll figure out what's going on with Julian and Daisy and Christian and Romeo in their book. But Magnolia just always pushes the boundaries. So now that we're talking about pushing boundaries, let's go back to the other point that I was going to make, because I think that little bit of context was really, really important. That Julian is telling Magnolia, leave me alone, you evil woman. He didn't say evil woman, but I added that in. So there was some type of party that they were at, right? Magnolia and BJ. And the woman that assaulted BJ as a child or as a teenager was at the party. And that, from the other books, that's kind of the reason that BJ gives as to what propelled him to initially cheat on Magnolia with Paley, because he says that, you know, any woman that he would have saw right after he saw the girl, the woman, the abuser, would have worked, right? So that was sort of the reason that he cheated on Magnolia initially. So this woman has been this tormenting presence throughout the series, and she's somehow at the party. And so BJ immediately goes on this sort of defense, this standoffish nature, and Magnolia, again being Magnolia, takes it upon herself to tell BJ to go wait in the car, and that she's gonna go deal with this woman. Obviously, assault is a big deal, and that is not being skipped over. So they had a conversation about what happened. Magnolia called her some names, rightfully so, like she's an abuser. Okay. What I didn't like, though, is that Magnolia looks at this woman at the end and basically tells her, if you ever come around him again, I'll kill you, right? And Magnolia, I would have looked at her and said the same thing. What are you gonna do to me? But then this is what she says. Hold on, did I write it down? I did. She says, I've always wondered how far Julian would go for me, and this feels like a happy way to test it. Girl, and maybe it's because I'm a Julian girl, it's because I feel the way that I feel about Julian, but she was maybe even willingly obtuse about what Julian did, and they've had conversations at this point about her letting Julian go, letting him live, and then you basically say that you've got a contract killer, that you're walking like a dog. Now granted, I think Julian would have absolutely offed that woman if Magnolia asked, if they were together. But you don't get to use this man as your little lackey like you use Henry and honestly every other man in the series. So that really grinded my gears, okay? But listen, now we're getting to the end, we're wrapping this up. So Bridget, before she passed, she had a plan to go on this Southeast Asia trip, or this Asia trip in general, with Allie, her best friend, Bridget's best friend, which is also BJ's little sister. So Allie still really wants to go on the trip. BJ basically said, hey, can Magnolia and I come? They turned it into this big thing with Henry and his girlfriend. I can't remember if Tora and Tiller came, but if they didn't, it doesn't even really matter. So they go on this trip. And they take Bridget's ashes, and ultimately Magnolia lets Bridget go, and BJ basically says, hey, the wedding that we don't even really want to have for all of London, let's just have it here. So they have the wedding. Again, it just felt like such a thing that the wedding and the planning was such a big plot point that we were pushing, and now we're just saying, oh, let's just have it small and intimate with our family. So they had the wedding. The vows were cute. I'll give you that. The vows were cute. But by this point, which is the end of the book, there was nothing that could save this for me. So you get to the end, and then fast forward a little bit after they're married, Magnolia says that she's pregnant. Ooh, like they need that. She says she's pregnant and that it's a girl, and BJ says, oh, I love a Parks girl, or I'm a sucker for a Parks girl. Like, okay, that was cute, but again, not enough to save the books. I had a really bad time reading this book, guys. I had a really bad time reading it, and I may have even DNF'd it if I didn't talk so much about it on the channel. I talked about it in an unboxing video. I talked about it in my 24-hour reading vlog. It had to be done that I had to address Magnolia Parks Into the Dark on this channel because I'm not a wimp, okay? Now, let's talk about some other little logistical things. And by logistical, I mean the author, Jessa Hastings. As a whole, right? Like, this series, I think I got really sucked into this series from Book Talk. And I gave Magnolia Parks, which is the first book, I gave this 3 stars. So I didn't have the best time. And then I read Daisy Hates, and I gave that 4 stars for Julian alone. Okay, right? Then you move on to Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home. I think I also gave this one 4 stars, only because, again, Magnolia is still messing with Julian. Then I read this, The Great Undoing, and I gave it 5 stars because of Julian. Surprise, surprise. And the way, it's almost as if Jessa isn't aware of readers right now, right? Like, she's gotten on social media multiple times and been like, oh, why do people love Julian? Julian is not, like, why would you love a gang lord and a killer when BJ just cheated? So for one, it feels like she's writing books to be super literal, right? And a lot of us are reading for, like, you read for escapism purposes, and that's why dark romances and taboo romances are a thing. Do you think anybody, well, I don't know, let me not speak for the whole world, but do you think that a lot of people that are reading those books actually want the things that are going on in them to occur to them? Because I know I don't. But Jessa would get on the internet and basically be like, if you like Julian, you're wrong, and like has threatened multiple times to kill this man off. And my thing is, you wrote him. You wrote him, and you have to know that you wrote him as a love interest, and you have to know that people are into that type of thing, right? Like, and that somebody, me, is going to pick a drug dealing gang lord art thief that is head over heels for Magnolia over a cheating, strung out, immature young Baxter Valentine. So all of that kept in mind, her getting on the internet basically threatening to kill Julian is insane. Her saying that she's going to put Daisy through a lot of pain. Like, she keeps hinting at the fact that she's going to off Julian. And I can already speak for myself as far as I have no interest in reading anything else, like any other series that Jessa Hastings writes. I'm only finishing out this series because I'm at the point where, like, I just want to know what happens. And honestly, I could probably just watch videos about it, but I'm too nosy myself. So I just want to know what happens. And that's why I'm finishing the series. I think before Into the Dark, when people would ask, like, do you recommend this series? I would say yes. But after this, like, my answer is no. I can't in good conscience, like recommend this series because I think it's bad. I really do think it's bad. Is that it? Because we're not going to talk. I don't even think when the new book comes out that we're going to talk about it. Like, we're going to put Magnolia Parks to rest right now. But while we're at it, let's talk about one last thing. The covers. So if you couldn't tell, I have the updated cover for Into the Dark, but the old cover for 3 of the 4 remaining books. Now, stunning, beautiful, lovely. Stunning, beautiful, lovely. Stunning, beautiful, dramatic. What is that? What is that, and why does Magnolia look like a claymation? So I went ahead and got this edition, and they're kind of growing on me, actually. Like, now that I'm looking at it, now that I'm holding it, I'm kind of like, you know what? I appreciate these, okay? So there's that. So that was my full in-depth review of Magnolia Parks Into the Dark. And we also did touch a little bit on the rest of the series. Like I said, I don't think that I'm going to talk about these books on the channel again. I think this is, I'm looking Magnolia Parks and Jessa Hastings in the face like Julian did and saying, let me be done with you. Okay, so we're done. We're done on this channel with Magnolia Parks after today. And honestly, I hope that you enjoyed this kind of longer talking video series review. If you did like the video, comment down below and let me know if there are any other series that you would be interested in me kind of breaking down, because I think that if I go into reading it with the idea that I'm going to break it down, like, that would make it easier for me, because I kind of just, like I said, I woke up and I jotted all my thoughts down because this wasn't my intention for this video. But if you enjoyed, let me know, and we can do this again with my other series that I read and other series that I've read. So yeah, if you liked the video, comment. I've already said that. Like and subscribe, but it's good to say it again. And I'll see you in the next video. Hold on, I have to take a break because I'm so thirsty from all this yapping.